Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We break down fantasy, romantasy, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy.
Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, character breakdowns, fan theories, and more. And this is your content warning. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Right. And going forward from here, there's going to be lots of spoilers for Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Consider this your spoiler warning.
So let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
Yeah, tonight's drink of the episode, I am calling this Winter's Wind. That's what I'm calling this. And this is an horchata rum-based drink. And it's got vanilla, a sugar and cinnamon rim. It's delicious. It's really good. It's refreshing. It also has a little bit of cold brew in it. So pretty much all the favorite things.
Horchata and coffee is like my favorite combo. So it's like a perfect drink.
Yeah. That's also symbolic of Winter's Wind, meaning, of course, we're going on this journey through Divelia to Kalish in this episode. And I thought it would be good to have something that kind of had a wintry feel to it, but also warming. We know that Kingfisher's not super warm just yet, but we know he'll get there.
I don't even know if he's warm anyway. Like, even when he gets more into it, he's not really cozy. He's not teddy bear.
That's fair, yeah. We're going to immerse ourselves back into Divelia, but I wanted to really quickly touch on the fact that I had a really amazing opportunity on a personal family vacation to go to Waterstones in the UK, where they have the hardcover edition. Look at this beauty.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Quicksilver. Yes. And it has a reversible. So if you're watching online, I'm sorry. If you're watching online, it has a reversible jacket to it. But look at this. Look at what it says on the inside. Be careful of the deals you make, dear child, is what it says. And then on the back, it says, the devil is in the details. Look at that. And then the reversible jacket is really pretty too. And I'm sure you've seen it online, but I was like, why don't they carry this in the US?
I know. Oh, I love those details.
Yeah. So beautiful book. Even the book itself, the hardcover, look at that. You got the wolves, a silver sword. Oh, the details on it. We just really bring it to the US, Callie. But I fear we will only be getting the new version and the Brimstone version, which version, of course, we know releases in August, and Brimstone will be releasing in November, and they're going to have matching jackets and all of that good stuff. I'm excited to see what the new covers are going to be. I know I'm never going to have the matching set of this hardcover, but I was at Waterstones in Piccadilly in London, and I had to have it. I was like, if I'm going to take a huge book home, it's going to be this one. So I grabbed it, and I know we'll never have one that matches for the full set, but like,
never say never.
Have it to add to my book. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'll add it to the book covers, but let's immerse ourselves back into Divelia. This episode, we're exploring chapters 16 through 20 of Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So whether you're reading along with us or just here for the book talk, we are always glad that you're here.
All right, let's start with chapter 16. We saw what a shadow gate is in the prequel chapters that we got from Callie Hart's website, and this is our first experience with one in terms of the core of the book. So the group that we have is traveling. So we have Saeris, Kingfisher, and we also have Ren and an unconscious Carrion right now. He's unconscious at this point on his horse.
Unconscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're approaching the shadow gate, and it's described as like a small spiraling cluster of shadow and smoke, very much like a vortex is what you're seeing. And it's long enough or large enough to fit a horse. And the fact that they travel through the shadow gates with the horses, I'm like, how do they not freak out? Like, they're animals. How are they okay with this?
And they're skittish. Horses are like skittish, no? So you would think they would be not okay with this, but they're just like, yeah, whatevs.
It's fine.
But
normal.
I don't know. Maybe it's something that Kingfisher can do. Maybe he's able to like calm them somehow because it's his gate. Speculating Fey magic here, but possibly.
Right. You can't put much above Fey magic. It's a fantasy world. They can do whatever they want. So
yes.
I'm gonna
the
buy
limit
into
does
that
not
theory.
exist. Yeah. Exactly.
The vortex absorbs the orange light from the tavern, and it's basically void of light. And Kingfisher stands at the shadow gate. His silver gorget was back at his throat, and he commands Ren will go first, then Saeris, and then he'll follow. So essentially, Ren is going to establish that everything's safe on their end as soon as they pass through the gate, and then Saeris goes through, and Kingfisher takes the end with Carrion on the back end of his horse.
Literally. And I think Saeris is just, the fuck is that? Absolutely not. Nope. Not walking through any such thing. And cool story, bro. Not doing it. Absolutely not. And I honestly cannot blame her at this point from what all she's seen already. She's already like, what the fuck is going on? She's got metals talking to her. She's got portals through metal. She's in the Fae world. The girl's got a lot going on. She has, I mean, she just spotted some fairies. There's a lot of things happening here for her. And at this point, she's just, nope, I'm not going to be doing that. And he's like, well, it's either this or you can travel on horseback and go hunting for 2 months, because that's the length of this journey if you choose not to go through this. And she's, that's fine. I'll do that.
I'd rather.
That's what I'm going to do. Yes, I would rather do that. And he's like, yeah, no, that was not a real option. You're not doing that. However, if you want and you want to take a run for it, I'll go ahead and give you a head start because I haven't hunted anything in a long time. So he's just kind of running, of course, being very much his Kingfisher self with his banter. And ultimately, unfortunately, he has to use the oath that he's bound to her, the blood oath, right? We know from before was to ultimately save her brother, but turns out it was Carrion instead that he brought back, and he has to use it to get her to obey. And she's like, I'll hate you for this, and he doesn't anyway.
And Ren hates him for it too.
Ren hears that this is happening, and I didn't just hear this correctly. You didn't actually do this. And he's, come on, it's gonna be okay, to Saeris. It'll be quick and it won't be too bad and everything's going to be fine. And then she walks through and Rempus is, oh shit, I forgot you were human. Like, what? He's, oh yeah, I forgot that this is like worse for y'all. I totally forgot that. I'm sorry, what, Fae warrior? You forgot that she's like, what? She's like, literally hurls the second she's through it. She's forced to go through it, of course, by the oath. And she steps through it. Everything is scattered. So I imagine this, okay, Harry Potter reference again, because it was a port key. Yeah, I mentally was like, oh, it's like you're going through the port key where they grab onto the shoe and it's like, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what I pictured. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And then she gets tossed in. I honestly picture her like literally, because it says she's nothing and then she was pain. So literally like her body is morphing through space and time at that point and condensing and forming. And then obviously she vomits.
The human body is
it's not built to go
that.
through that. I don't blame her. And as soon as they get over there, there's Oris, who is some sort of caretaker at Callish, and Renfest tells him to go take care of the horses, but Fisher needs time to adjust and will speak tomorrow. So the fact that Fisher always has to excuse himself, and we know it's because of the Quicksilver and he has to like his thoughts, but the fact that Saeris can never excuse herself. She always has to put up with his shit. But Fisher's like, nope, I'm not dealing with anyone's bullshit for the rest of the day after this, and just goes and shuts himself away. Every time he did that, I'm like, what the fuck? You can't just do that.
But yet he does.
He does.
And I kind of can't. It's been 110 years since he's been home. So I try to give him some leeway. No second read that, all right, he gets to dip out. But when you add that factor that was literally in the labyrinth for 110 years, and he's his first time he's setting foot back in Callish after 110 years, that's just something Saeris could never process. And doesn't really have the depth of understanding. And this is where you have Renfest going back to her repeatedly saying, hey, you didn't know him before. You don't really know the gravity of what you're asking of him and the depth of what you're trying to get from him, that he just might not be capable of that yet. It's totally fair. And when you're reading it though, you're just like, wow, what a dick. But because to your point, when you read it the first time, you're just like, cool, he just gets to like peace out whenever he feels like it, because you don't have that full depth of understanding of his character yet. But I think when you add that in as a second read, you're just like, oh, you kind of give him, I give him more grace. I don't know.
Sure. He's still an asshole. We understand why he's an asshole, but he's still an asshole.
He could have been better. Yes. But also he could have been worse. Just saying.
I see nothing wrong with either statement. Yeah.
On that note, Renfest takes this moment right after he's pieced out, Kingfisher has left, to explain how Belicon had forced Kingfisher to travel without the relic. The silver had infected him to where he almost had died originally from the first time he travels. and his mind was broken. It took a very long time for these healers to help him recover. There's still a little bit that remains in his eye. This is where we first find this out. His true understanding of what's going on with the Quicksilver. His mother's relic doesn't seem to be as effective, and he's also traveled a couple more times since having his mother's relic. And Saeris asks, where was Kingfisher for this 110 years? Like, where was he? And Renfis is just, I cannot tell you that. That is just not something I can reveal or that I'm comfortable talking about with you. And when he's ready, he'll tell you. I just can't. I feel like this is do you feel like it's a cop out for authors when they do that, where they're just like, well, you're not ready yet to hear it, so I'm just not going to put that in there. But then on the second read, I was like, no, that was valid. That was totally valid of Renfis to say that at that time. But you're reading and you're like, oh, at least me as the first read, I'm like, really? Yeah, just tell me. The impatience of the reader of like, just tell me what the heck's going on here. But I get it. On the second read again, this is where it like laminated more for me that Renfis was totally right and valid for saying, hey, this isn't my story to tell, and he's just gonna have to tell you himself. Which truly, when you find out the true nature of where he was, couldn't be more true. That's accurate. It's a dark story, and it's really not Renfis's place to tell it. He wasn't there. But at the time when I read it, I was like, God damn it. I guess I'm going to have to fucking wait to find out what's going on with this. All right, fine.
After they have this conversation, Saeris falls unconscious because just traveling through the vortex of the Shadowgate was too much for her body. And then she wakes up with Carrion's voice and Onyx at the end of the bed, like growling at him. And Saeris is like scolding Carrion immediately, not, hey, happy to see you're awake, but like, what the fuck, man? Why did you tell Kingfisher you were Hayden? And he's, you know what? I did him a favor, because imagine like this 7-foot-something fae just comes up with probably with a weapon, says, are you Hayden? And he's
shadows like all
say, yeah,
you smell of her kin or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
he said in Fae Warrior, who knows,
with a loud or brooding, like just towering. And Carrion he's big too, because he's also fae, but he's not as big and as bulky and just really just a daunting figure as Fisher. So he's like, I did Hayden a favor, stop yelling at me. And she explained
the way I wanted a Carrion point of view bonus chapter because of this. I would very much care that much about Kingfishers. I would have loved a Carrion specifically point of view chapter of this. So Callie, if you're listening, throw a girl bone here. That would be really nice if you could just give us that. That would be really great.
No, I would definitely love that. And see like how he so he's unconscious. Did he become, what point in time was he unconscious? Did he travel from the third to the castle at least?
How far did they make it? You know?
Exactly.
Did Kingfisher just come in on a pool of shadows and just show up randomly in his face and was like, you smell of her. Are you? And he's, yeah, man, I'm him. You know, like, I just don't know. Like, I wonder. And also, was Carrion like, oh, this is another Fae dude? Like, he knew. Because obviously Carrion's known, right? He's lived 1,500, however many years. So he probably was like, what the hell is going on here? The hell has Saeris got herself into now? And I just wonder. And that's why I think, okay, cool, we'd have Kingfisher's perspective. Nice. But specifically of this outcome would be very cool to have. So Callie, if you could, we would appreciate it. Carrion's going through saying, look, I don't know why you're so pissed off. Saeris I can just imagine her being so much smaller than him, and she's like literally pointing her finger into his chest and like looking up at him and trying to be like really threatening. And he's just, what the fuck? And she's like, didn't Madra destroy the third? Is everything gone? And what's going on? And then he's like, no, they're getting ready for this flower festival. She's like, well, how do you know they're not hanging gallows? And he's like, I saw the flowers in the square. They're not. I don't know if you know this, but not everything's about you. Being very Carrion, being very like nonchalant. And she's like, well, where's my brother? What's going on? And he's like, don't worry about it. I got him set up in the 7th. So when he's explaining this, we're talking about the rings of Zilvarin, and she's in the 3rd. So the 7th is a much significantly better area, because the 3rd is obviously the worst. We know this already. It's been established at the beginning of the book. He's in the 7th, and Carrion got him papers to travel there the first night. And he's a store clerk with triple water rations. He lives above the shop. And while he is actively trying to get back to find out what's going on with Saeris, he's begrudgingly staying there and keeping himself alive. So Saeris is relieved at this and also filled with gratitude, but doesn't want to give too much of that to Carrion. But she does this like full reversal. Yeah.
She doesn't want to let him know that like she would be in debt to him for taking care of him. That would give Carrion an ego that he already has an ego. So she definitely doesn't want to do that. But she immediately is, oh my God. Like a weight has been lifted off her shoulder, knowing that her brother is safe, because that's her brother and Elroy are like her two biggest stressors, and trying to get home and make sure they're safe, and knowing at least Hayden is safe. And well, Elroy is safe. He keeps going back and yelling at the gate and the guards saying that he wants to see Saeris and that he knows she's in there, and they keep shooing him away. So at least he's safe as well for now, till he pisses someone off. But just knowing these is just such a relief for her that, just a weight's off her shoulder.
What did you think of the fact that Madra just switched right over to celebrating what they were planning to celebrate, this even
Super sus. Super
especially
suspicious.
on a second read? You're like, why did we just stop talking about this whole thing? And I think what's really interesting to me is like motivation for on a second read, why she did this is obvious. She wants to get away from this idea that Quicksilver exists, that the Fae exists, the idea of pointing any direction toward what happened with Saeris and having anyone talk about it, and her being successful with this gauntlet situation, like of that. None of that wants to be talked about. She's, this can fuck with my power and what I'm trying to do, so I'm not going to mess with any of it. If she wipes, the entire third, what does that ultimately get her? It's not a value add for her to do this. So she just is, we're going to pretend this never happened. La-di-da.
And secret, but like not a forgive and forget type. It's, I'm going to keep this in the back of my mind. And the second I get a chance to screw all of you over and use it to my benefit, I'm going to do that.
Right.
But, it's like a political
the card
move.
she's holding. Absolutely. Yep. And Saeris is surprised by this because she's also like, the fuck? Like, why? Madra's not forgiving.
Saeris gets up and she walks around the room and explains what she could to Carrion about her time in Avelia. And Carrion references Fisher as the one with the creepy sword and the bad attitude. And I thought that was really funny because, that's it, with the god sword, and just he's just grouch. And Carrion runs down the Cliff Notes version of events. Kingfisher interrupts as she's about to find out how to make the relics. And Fisher declares he's only half insane and Saeris is the only reason he's alive at this point. So ultimately, whenever Carrion and Fisher are in the room with Saeris, there's just a lot of arguing back and forth about who has a bad attitude, who wants Saeris's attention, affection. They just need to pull it out and measure at some point, because
I also think Carrion just beats him too.
Yes.
Yeah, and Carrion just like totally fans a flame here. He does.
And he's Fae too, so I'm wondering what he's smelling, because I'm sure he can
and
scent
also
things.
He knows that, of course, and he also knows Avelia exists and all of this, so she's hearing about it, but he's finally getting to see something he's heard about his entire life, over 1,000 years, that he's finally getting to be a part of by maybe, and this is again why I would want his point of view chapter of how he ended up here, is I just wonder if he intentionally brought himself back because he knew this was his moment, that his grandmother had set him up and was like, there's going to be a moment and you're going to know where you need to go back and stake your claim on our land and your right at birth. And I just wonder if this was what happened when Kingfisher came and grabbed him, is that this realization occurred. And again, a point of view Kingfisher chapter, while it would be nice, wouldn't identify these things that Carrion has up his sleeve and in his back pocket of thoughts he's having when this happens. So Callie, we would just love that. So now again, if you wouldn't mind giving us a Carrion point of view chapter, thank you so much. Groveling.
So this conversation basically culminates into Fisher telling Saeris that she needs to come along with him so she understands her abilities more, and Carrion agrees she should go. She's obviously needed for something, and Fisher doesn't use his oath anymore because Ren is mad at him. So he's like, my best friend's mad at me, so I'm not gonna do it so much because I don't want Bestie being mad at me anymore. So
yeah, and I haven't seen Bestie in over 100 years, so I'm gonna be on my best behavior for Rumpus, and I'm not gonna do that anymore. Saeris in her infinite wisdom is, okay, I'm going to bind you to something. And he's, yeah, okay, be my guest. Or what do you have? What's going on? I'll agree to go with you if you agree that after I'm done making your relics for all of your people, for enough that you need, that you're going to release Carrie and I, and we can go back to Zilvarin the moment that I'm done. And he's like, oh, sure, that's cool. And the way I read this the first time, I was like, that was way too easy. He was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. And she's like, well, wait a minute. You're bound to this, right? Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Yeah.
You're just
a few thousand relics later.
No. Yeah, only 15,000.
Yeah.
So Carrion asks if he's going to be like locked away forever. Are you going to leave me locked in here? And Fisher's just like, I've never locked the door. You've been free to go this whole time. And he's like,
and Saeris, you didn't check the door?
Yeah. And he's, yeah, you're not going to get very far with one boot, but yeah, you're more than welcome to go wherever you feel like it. And Saeris is just like, we have not been trapped because she's thinking she's being held captive here.
Right.
And that she can't leave. And that's not the case. That brings us to chapter 17, Kalish. And the way I envision Kalish and loved Kalish of it being Kingfisher's family home, finally something really a beautiful thing about him, this piece of him that we get, this understanding of him. And we truly get to see him open up in his element and where he's from. We get a piece of that here, and I really enjoyed this side of Kingfisher finally starting to come to light here in chapter 17. We start getting a different version of him, which I really enjoyed.
I agree. Kalish is homey. It's a palace essentially, but it's a homey palace. It's not like the Winter Palace that's like devoid. It's beautiful, but it's like devoid of like feelings.
Warm.
And yes, warm. So the house, it has open arch windows, light, airy hallways, portrait that seem to resemble Fisher, and there's beautiful furniture. So very homey, very comfortable. And she comments that's very different from what she's picturing because remember, Belicon comments that Kalish is a war zone. So obviously she's picturing a war zone, not a countryside home.
Right,
her mind is like, what is this place? Already she can't process much of what's going on anyways because it's just so grand, imagining like there's this whole other universe that exists outside of her own. It's just another like mindfuck for her. And
yeah, and I think too it also adds to like the depth of the world that we're in. Kalish is one piece and this is his home, but the land itself is massive, and the map itself, this gives a level of depth to the map that we see. This stuff is all spaced out. The space that we have in terms of how big this world is, it's vast. It gives you a better understanding of how big the world that Callie Hart is trying to build for us is with this information of when she's waking up and she's like, where's the front lines? I thought that they were here. And he's like, well, yeah, they are, but like they're not right here. So it gives you like a better understanding of how grand this map and this world is.
Right. And it also shows the distortion of reality that Belicon, or mainly a lot of political figures, can use because Belicon hasn't been to Kalish. He's not allowed to set foot in Kalish. So he wouldn't know how to describe it other than what he would assume, which is a war zone. And he's not privy to that information, but he's going to distort that and have that vision of Kalish for everyone else because it works to his
and what
benefit.
it does, of course, and what it does to his people that he's leading that are in the Winter Palace and telling this story is just furthering his truth, his version of truth to his people. Absolutely, he's going to stand on that, and he's never even been there. Cool story, bro. Which is the second time I've said that in this episode, and I'm no longer saying it anymore. Now I've reached my cool story, bro. Oh, number 3. Okay, we're for sure at our quota now. We're not saying it again.
No more millennial terms out of you.
I know. We're done here. The millennial comment is gone. We've reached our quota. Our max is done.
Fisher tells us that the home was his before he was commanded by Belicon and for his mother to go to the Winter Palace, and his great-grandfather had built the home for his whole family line. And as they're going down the stairs, we find Archer, who is a fire sprite. And I pictured Archer as Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast. That's who I was picturing the whole time because fire, and I know he's not always on fire the whole time, but just the way he freaks out a lot. And all he wants to do
he's like spastic. Yeah.
And he loves Fisher because he raised Fisher, essentially. He was the second one to hold him besides his mother. So he holds Fisher near and dear. And all he wants to do is make Fisher happy. And Saeris isn't really privy to Fae culture and Fae norms and how the Fae should behave. And the fact that anytime like at dinner, she completely insults him by like her mannerisms, and it's just really funny because he just gets all huffy and just like pouts and just starts freaking out. So I liked Archer. I thought he was a nice addition to lighten the mood.
He lightens the mood, but he also gives a depth of personality to Fisher that we wouldn't have otherwise seen. And Archer, who hasn't seen Kingfisher in 110 years, freaked out at first. He's just, do you see him? Like to Saeris. And he doesn't know Saeris either. But he's literally, is he there? Do you see him? And she's like, yes, unfortunately. He starts crying. And because he's a fire sprite and because he's like made of, essentially, I viewed him as like coal-ish or like lava that's, and as he's described, and there's tears falling, but they're like going like on his skin as soon as they hit his face. So she's like, what the hell is going on? She's so confused. And she's like, why does he care so much for Kingfisher? What's going on? So Kingfisher drops to his knees and picks up what Archer has dropped. And Archer's like, why don't pick this up? And you don't have to do all this. And he's just so spastic and talks about how much he's missed him and that he's hoped every day for his return, shows him so much kindness and love for Archer. And he tells Saeris of the different types of sprites in general that exist, insisting that she needs to start learning some of the names of the creatures because she keeps just saying that everyone's a fae. And that's really not going to go very well in the long term. So you should probably start figuring out where the heck you are. But Saeris is just like, look, I don't really care. I just want to make the relics and go back to the third as quickly as possible to help my people. And Fisher states that he shoulders a lot of responsibility because of his birth. But why do you care, Saeris? Like, you don't have a need to care about the third other than your brother, who you know is fine. Why are you trying to go back? There's no water. It's a desert.
Barren
it's
wasteland.
Like, what is it you want to do? And she's just, I know that there's more and it's the right thing to do. And I can do something, so I should. So this speaks to her character and her feeling of honor and this duty-bound feeling that she has towards doing the right thing in the right moment. Even though she's essentially a thief at the beginning of the book, it's do the wrong thing for the right reasons type of mindset. And you see that a lot with Saeris and some of the choices that she makes. But this is another nod to that in her personality and loyalty and an understanding of what she deems as morally correct and the right types of things to be doing.
Fisher leads Saeris to the forge because that's her whole job, right? To make all these relics. And I loved the description of the forge. To get to the forge, there is an enchanted door, and it essentially teleports them to a room that is like half in cave or like half walled, but part of it opens up to the outside. So a lot of the descriptions, there's Onyx, he's playing and looking at the walls outside and playing in the trees, and it's beautiful. And this one is actually a functioning forge that is organized and not trashed to shit like the first forge that they ran into. There are rows of crucibles, supplies, and just the outside wall like blows her mind. And she's really confused. She's like, we were on a different floor and now we're down here. And he's just, magic. That's how things work.
Yeah, I thought of the Room of Requirement. I thought of also in Goblet of Fire. Sorry, Harry Potter references incoming. When we're at the Quidditch World Cup, right? And they go into the tent and it's like exactly like what they needed. It's massive on the inside. And Harry's just, what the hell just happened here? And they're like, yeah, magic. What do you mean? It's this extendable charm or whatever. It just gives you this nod of, again, you have absolutely no idea what this world's truly capable of and like how much power resides here. Obviously, it's not Room of Requirement because it doesn't appear when you need it, but only in the sense that like it appears and it's the room that you need for the function. This doesn't do that. This is quite literally the forge every time. It's just designed in a way that's like safe. So in case something implodes, you're not on the third floor of the house with a giant, massive crucible and forge running that could destroy the whole place. Speaks to how you have these different nods that are maybe not as completely original by the author, but are used in a way that make it original to the story and tie together things that you can already accept as a fantasy reader.
I also liked how, so this is Ren's magic. We get that he's the one that actually creates the enchanted doors. And I like how magic isn't just magic. Like anyone, they can do anything, but people will have their strengths and their weaknesses. So it's not like everyone is marked with power and they can just do whatever they want with all their magic. It's not like that. There's a give and a take, and you have to have a camaraderie for people to build something like Callish and like a society. So I did love how there has to be a community. It takes a village, essentially, to build all this beauty. So I did enjoy that as well.
Yeah, and there's this moment where Saeris is asking, why don't you just use the shadow gates to go wherever you need to go? Like, move your people. And why am I here? Like, what's the difference? And this is where it's established, and we talked about this in the previous episode, but this is like the moment it's established to Saeris, where Kingfisher kind of talks to her like she's an idiot. And he says to her, shadow gates are of this realm. They can only be used within this realm. Quicksilver is not of this realm. Therefore, it can be used within this realm, but also within or to other realms as well. No more fucking questions. We have work to do. Like, he's really nice about it. I don't know. Very nice about it.
I would say direct.
He lays it out and she's just, oh, okay, great. And at this point, he's already explained to her, like, the enchanted door thing. He's talked about how all of this works because she keeps asking him questions, which, by the way, he told her back in the Winter Palace to ask questions. And now she's asking the questions and he's like, all right, enough. I'm done with your question. Which is it, Kingfisher? Which is it?
I'm sure he's viewing her. Think of like our kids, like at the toddler stage, it's like, what's this? What's this? Why? But why? What's that? What? So, like, yes, questions are beautiful, but please, sometimes so is silence. I don't, please. So I'm sure that's how he's feeling.
And then, of course, Kingfisher just adds insult to injury by opening a wooden trunk and showing a mountain of silver rings of different shapes and sizes that all have different stones in them and all of this. And there are 8 trunks in total. And she does the math after they're talking and determines there's 15,000 of them that she has to make now to figure out. First of all, she doesn't even know how to do it at all. And now she's made this oath with him that, yeah, okay, when I'm done with all of these, I can go. And she's like, fuck, I did not word that.
Yes. And to make these relics, it's not just taking the silver. It is taking the silver, transmuting it, and then taking whatever unique gem or whatever was unique to that ring, put it back on there, and to make this unique individual relic to each individual person. So she can't just like mass melt them and mass produce it. She has to do one at a time.
One by one.
Very, very carefully. And if there's engraving, she has to fucking do that too. Or she risks, because these are family heirlooms. These are not like, it's not just a cheap ring they got from Claire's. It's an actual something that's important. So it just, it's an impossible task, essentially, that he's sure. Just
and
do
he's
that.
like, I don't care if they're imperfect. They just need to work. Because she's like overwhelmed by the fact that these are like beautiful family heirlooms. It would be great if you could, but just focus on being able to make one right now. And that's where we jump into chapter 18, which is titled Crucible. Oh, here we go. Had books written by the alchemists before they all died out. So most had written in Old Fae were basically useless. So the alchemists, they needed help deciphering what's going on because a lot of the old texts and Old Fae that was written had disappeared. And so there isn't a way to completely decipher this type easily. It all needs to be translated. Midday, food appears, which Saeris shares with Onyx. She's overwhelmed, but she just lets him go play in the snow, and she's trying to chill out and not be overwhelmed by the fact that she could be here the rest of her life at this point because she has no idea how she's going to do this. She's studying and studying. She decides that she's just going to try a used scrap of metal to mess around with and just see. So she doesn't want to use the rings yet because obviously these are relics. She doesn't want to fuck something up. So she's just like, all right, I'm going to use this scrap of metal that's in here over here and try it out and see if she can feel the type of metal and try to figure out what's going on with it.
And as she's doing this, for each scrap, she essentially throws on just like random spices and random materials just to see what would work. So I'm picturing, like, this is literally like how I cook, and just a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of that. We'll see what the fuck happens. And it just doesn't work. At any of her attempts, nothing happens. One time, like, something happened with salt. So she's okay. I get a reaction. At least it's something. It didn't like explode or burst to flames. But she does comment that Quicksilver literally mocks her and like laughs at her every time she fucks up. And on the first read, I'm like, okay, she doesn't know what she's doing. But on the second read, literally Fisher told her in the past, you have to command the Quicksilver to work. And in my head, I'm like, why isn't she telling the Quicksilver to work? She's just like throwing like salt at it. Like it's going to just do it immediately. So this entire second read, I'm like, girl, tell it to work. Just tell it. And it might mock you at first, but just do it. So I was getting really frustrated because I'm like, your boy told you what to do. He told you to talk to it, but no, we don't want to talk to
Yeah.
it. We want to ignore the Quicksilver. So it's going to be like a big F you. And I'm not going to do shit for you if you're not going to talk to me and acknowledge me.
Yeah. And also, she doesn't want to do what Kingfisher said to do either because she's super stubborn. So she's just like, yeah, I'm going to figure it out on my own. I'll need no help from you, even though you're 1,800 years old. Like, why would I need your help in this situation?
I'm 20.
Anyway.
23. I know everything.
24.
24.
Yeah, she knows everything.
Even better. She knows everything. Well, extra year. That's more knowledge than Kingfisher has.
So she keeps trying all these things. On her 4th attempt, she adds charcoal, widow's bane, all this shit. She's adding all this stuff. And she just is like, all right, I'm going to go leave. I'm done. I'm mentally done. I'm overstimulated. I don't know what else to do. Her and Onyx leave the forge and they wander around Kalish. Renfis appears. He's covered in mud with a bloody gash on his cheek, and she's, what's going on? And she says that she's got an impossible task, and he's checking on her and her impossible task. She's like, what's going on? What went on? And he says that there was a skirmish with heavy clouds and darkness, but they didn't lose. They took down over 30 of the enemy. And she's like, man, the fighting must be pretty close. It's not right here at the house, but it's fairly nearby. Renfis says to her that he gave Kingfisher hell about this oath. He doesn't agree with it. That Fisher is very black and white, single-minded, and that due to the Quicksilver, as we said before, he has a hard time keeping reality and what's in his head separate. And I think this is also a nod to the labyrinth and how in the labyrinth, he didn't have to eat or sleep. He was literally awake for 110 years. Horrible. And so there's a lot on his mind from this type of treatment. He's using Saeris now as a tool, but Renfis doesn't want her to be pushed too far. So he's just saying, hey, I know how he is. He's just trying to be there for his friend, but also be that extra person, that extra side character in this case, that is a comfort to our female main character. And he essentially does this. She finds out that Ren told Fisher that they're going to need to have dinner together. He agreed to it, but Saeris is like, I'm only going to go if there's alcohol. So that's it. I'm not going.
I like how Ren's like, it's going to be over with quickly. This is what you tell your kid when you're going to get a shot. Like, it's going to be over with quickly. Like, it'll be fine. Just, you got to do it. It's for your own good. And so I just found that funny. Like, he knows that it's going to be an evening and that she just needs some coercing into it. And obviously alcohol is it's a good motivator.
Yep.
At the dinner table, it's 30 feet long and they sat on opposite ends. I'm literally picturing Beauty and the Beast. A lot of this book, I'm picturing Beauty and the Beast. She's Belle, he's the Beast, and they're just on opposite ends. And this massive centerpiece. So she can't even see him. When she does see him, he's like drinking wine and she's like, the fuck? Where's my wine? And he's just like, well, come and get some. And she, fuck it, I'm going to get up and get my wine. And then she grabs her plate and her setting is, you know what? I'm not going to go back and forth. I'm going to just sit right there. I'm not playing this stupid game with him. And just plops right down on his right side.
Saeris calls Fisher out about how he's contradicting himself because one minute the relics are super urgent and the next he's putting time-consuming obstacles in the process, and that Fisher emphasizes the need for relics outweighs him fucking with her. However, resources are tight at Kalish, and Saeris argues that there's gold everywhere, but it isn't gold that she needs. And so there's this dialogue of you keep interrupting me. Now you want to have dinner. You want all these other things. Which is it? What are we doing here? There's a moment where she asks why silver is in short supply. They need as much as possible. Saeris can't stop staring at his canines at this point. She's distracted. And Fisher opens his mouth more. Of course he does. She gets turned on. Of course she does. So Belicon has an embargo on silver, shocking. So all the silver must be turned over to him. But they need the Quicksilver to work to get the silver from other realms. So Belicon refuses to give them silver or any aid, which we know that we need silver because silver is what helps defeat the vampire zombie things on of the Darn, this big river that's dividing everything, right? So, of course, Belicon, we find out later because his brother is the leader of them, naturally puts it to where you can't get silver anywhere. So why would he help Kalish? Sure, he wants to really help them. Anyway, fire sprites burst into the room, interrupting the conversation. Archer's hyperventilating, of course. Everyone gets to calm down. The desserts are coming out. Saeris is, I'll eat in the forge. I'm not doing everything right. I don't know what else to do. Fisher counters that she'll be poisoned and she just needs to eat here. Like, you can't eat in there. That's not a place that we eat. And that the fire sprites are actually more like humans than like fae. And that he emphasizes again, this is where we find out that Archer helped raise Kingfisher and that they had this tight relationship. It should be noted, too, that Saeris hearing about and seeing how he reacts to Archer and things like that, in her mind's eye, she's commenting, like she's seeing these things happen, even though she really doesn't want to have awareness of him in a positive light. She kind of can't help see the positive way that he treats the people of his household and like the people that work to attain this home.
And how people regard him, because she only regards him as an asshole. I believe she calls him a bastard. I think that's the word. Right. And everyone is just like, he's amazing. He's so kind. And she's like, this guy, what? Like, this one, are you sure? And it's really subtly changing her perspective of him. Like, she doesn't realize it as much, but you see it start softening as she sees these little interactions happen, that she just becomes more understanding. And a lot of their back and forth becomes less attacking and more of a, why can't you see that I just want to help you? Why can't you get past that? Why are you so antagonizing? So there's just a lot of shifts happening that start in Callish and just these subtle interactions.
Yep. And then, of course, things start to get a little bit more heated and more intense because they start an argument about Carrion. Kingfisher emphasizes that when he went to look for Hayden, he didn't just have the scent of her blood on him. He detected her scent on him 3 miles away.
He's like a fucking
3 miles away.
Great white shark. What is that?
Yes. But he didn't have time to differentiate between pheromones and blood. And she's like, what? Shut the fuck up. Literally, that's what she says. He goes, it became very clear what had happened. He still even smells of you now. And she's like, I slept with him months ago. Months. It was once. I was drunk. He's never let me live it down. There's no way that you can still smell me on him. There's no way. And of course, 13,000 highlighters can't be wrong because the kindlers were kindling at this point. And he says, there's every way. Fisher rumbled. His eyes were darkening. I'd know the smell of you anywhere, on anyone. I'd know it blind and in the dark. Across a fucking sea, I would be able to scent you. And then, boom, in capital letters. Fisher gets interrupted. Damn it.
By the windows shattering.
The windows the windows shattering. The windows get blown in. There's, from Saeris' perspective, Fisher becomes death and vision of him that she's seen multiple times before. This is where we are first introduced and first see firsthand how close these vampires / zombie vampire things get. There's 4 tall monsters that are shells of themselves. Patchy hair, stringy hair, white waxy skin. They're shells of themselves, zombie-looking things, red eyes. They're gaunt. They still have the clothes on them from when they perished, rags, essentially, depending on the age of when they, at this point, that they were turned into these things. Elongated yellow fangs. Fisher breaks out Nimmerel, his sword, and it's black stuff just like out of them. This like sulfur smelling.
Smells.
Oh, it's gross. Yeah. Unfortunately, Sarah sees one of them and they're just like have their gaping mouths open. They're trying to get at her. It's a woman and a teenage boy, which to me was like unbearably sad every time they mentioned, I know they're not real, but just thinking about there's children, some of them are babies later on, like that have been turned, and it's sad. The whole situation is awful. So the woman and the teenager are trying to get to her, like grabbing at her throat. It's really close. It's not good. There's maggots that are spilling from them. It's horrifying. It's really
so
graphic.
Disgusting.
Well, the way it's described, it's described for pages and pages, like in depth. The teenage boy slams into Saeris. It's just like counting down. She's like, I'm gonna die. I don't know what else is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Black smoke wraps around the woman's throat, which we know is Kingfisher.
The black smoke wraps around the woman's throat, and it says the smoke became metal. So literally his smoke materialized into something that would just literally pop her head off. So I thought that was interesting. That's a tell into his magic. It's not just like shadows and using his shadows as manipulation. It's his shadows can literally materialize into objects. And it just pops her head off. I thought that was really cool because we see more of what his magic does. And he's a badass, but, you know, the little details, that's what counts.
Yeah. Teenage boy has not been decapitated yet at this point, and they look over, and he's lapping up blood on the rug. Why we needed this detail, I'm not sure, but I think it just establishes the animalistic
They're feral.
of what these creatures are. There's no humanity left in them. It just really identifies this. Kingfisher decapitates him. Saeris immediately throws up, which Feel Ya Girl would have done the same. Kingfisher grabs her, and that she had been clawed by the woman, so she'd been clawed by one of these things. The wound needs scourging. Her fingers are starting to feel numb, and feeders are what they're called, Sansarathian foot soldiers. So if you look at the map, Sansarathian is on there. Sansaroth is on there, and the reason that they need silver is that it's the only thing that can kill them. So this is where it all kind of connects for Saeris about the thing about Belicon earlier in the chapter, talking about silver and how you couldn't get it, identifying what's going on there, and leads us right into chapter 19, which is titled Bones and All.
Chapter 19 opens with Saeris in the middle of a dream, and this is a horrific dream, obviously, because of the events that just happened. She's in a darkened hallway that stretched for eternity. There's doors on either side. It smelled of rot, the sulfur. There are crowds of feeders, and every time she opened the door, she would see bloodlusted women, children, elderly men. They would sink their teeth into her, and she would get away to open another door and just more feeders. And she couldn't outrun or fight them. Horrific dream. As she is healing.
Yes, I fucking know that she would have.
No, not at all. She bolted awake, and she's in pain in Kingfisher's bedroom. He's sitting in a chair watching her. It's a wingback chair, and the black ichor is still like on his cheeks as he's just watching her. And she immediately is like, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything. No, he didn't. And he's just, I never said it's your fault. It seems like you have a guilty conscience. She had a hole in the side of her leg because Fisher chose to relocate them to a place where they were in danger. She immediately is just really defensive and is attacking. And he's like, you don't have a hole in your leg. We actually have really excellent healers, and there's nothing there. The perk of living in the war zone, so you're fine. And Saeris emphasizes how they aren't safe in his own home. She's like, how can we be here? We're not safe here. This is your home. Fisher said he had a plan. He initially didn't have guards because he believed that the feeders wouldn't be so hungry. Now they have guards on post, so it's not going to happen again. He ultimately miscalculated. I learned my lesson, and don't worry, it'll be fine. You're fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. And Fisher is actually impressed that she landed 2 hits on each of the feeders. And Saeris is like, why? Because I'm a woman? Because I'm a human? And how dare I? He's like, she's, you're so combative. And she's like, why do you hate humans? We are nothing alike, he said quietly. You nearly died from a scratch that would have been a mild irritation to me. You are soft, you are fragile, you are vulnerable. You're a newborn fawn stumbling around in the dark, surrounded by predators with very sharp teeth. I am the thing that exists on the other side of the dark. I'm the thing that puts the fear of the gods into the monsters who would eat you, bones and all. So this is where we get the title of the chapter, Bones and All.
Bones and All.
And so the first read, I'm reading it through Saeris' perspective, and she's taking all the insults. You're weak, you're fragile, I have to protect you. But on the second read, knowing how he feels, I'm like, these are all the things that he's afraid of her, because she is fragile, she is soft, she is breakable. So he's saying this as not like an insult to her, but as a fear for him. And
he feels like the gods have smited him to give him a human companion. He's like, seriously, after 110 years of this, now confirmed my mother thought she was Fae, but she's human. This is what you've done. Like, now I have to protect. She's my most sacred. She's my Osha. Like, she's my most sacred. And it's got to be a human who can't even defend herself at all. Like, seriously. But she, of course, doesn't know any of this. So she's just hearing that she's a waste of space, basically, and that a burden to him. So that's all she can hear.
Very opposite.
But quite literally the opposite of how he actually feels. But he also lays it on thick on purpose and says it in a way that's offensive. So he does this on purpose as well to try to not get him wrapped up in this situation and to get her to not fall for him. They're mated, so it's going to happen anyway. Time to face facts, Fisher. Saeris, and also it's telling too, like we said, that he's sitting here all night. He never went to go wash up after this happened. He's sitting there until she wakes up. Saeris couldn't place a look on his face. It seemed like he wanted to touch her cheek. Then she whispered that they're in his room. And he's like, yeah. And he like pulls back. He's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have reached to touch you. She asks why his paintings are all torn. And this gave me very
Beast.
Beauty and the Beast vibes.
Yeah,
yes.
Beast. This whole time, it's Beast.
Beauty and the Beast vibes because he tore all his paintings. So I'm thinking of the castle and it's because of the Quicksilver. So sometimes he loses himself to madness with the Quicksilver, and Fisher makes to leave, and that he could command her to stay, and unless she needs to relieve herself, then she's not to get out of that bed, which he does command her to stay. So even then, she's going to go straight to the bathroom and back to bed, but she needs to heal properly. And he's probably on the other side of this terrified that she could die from this. So she protests, saying that she can heal in her own bed, but he's like, no, you're going to stay here. Yeah, I don't trust you. So right here.
Yep. Which her track record proves for a reason why he should not trust her, because she escapes. She leaves whenever she wants to. So fair. So she protests ultimately, but he's adamant in making his demand because he's heading to Erin for a week. So she will be left alone and he is going to be preoccupied, so he needs her to stay put. Erin is a war camp on the other side of the mountains. They're a barrier between Kalish and the Carnage on the other side. So we're going to see this area soon. This is the front line. This is where the war zone is. Fisher then retorts that he never needed to use an injury as an excuse to sneak into someone's bed. He hasn't had problems securing his own invite, and she comments that he shouldn't count on invite into her bed. This is where they have this playful, flirty banter that she both hates and loves. And he's like, you're right. I don't think you will invite me. When the time comes, I think you'll beg. And then she just like chucks a pillow at his head. Get the fuck out of here.
He can't help himself. Yeah.
No, of course not. She loves getting a rise out of her. And then he leaves.
Yes. So 5 days go by and she's in this room. 5 days. She eats and sleeps in his bed. She's allowed to get up and relieve herself, and then she has to go back to her bed. Like her legs take her back to her bed. Magic keeps the sheets cool and clean, but Fisher's smell never leaves the room. It's the smell of a cold winter forest.
I love this magic. Can I have this magic where like all surfaces, like there's no dirt, it just poof, gone? I would love this.
Exactly. No, unfortunately,
if this
we are stuck without this magic that cleans everything.
Damn it.
So now she's losing her mind. She's bored. She wants to kill him. Her rage is back. So clearly she's feeling much better. This is the only thing that's kept her company throughout this time. The fire sprites bring her meals. She begs them to go fetch Fisher. They shrug and just say he hasn't returned. Because what are they going to do? She doesn't know this, but they're not going to do anything. So after lunch, Taylena, which is a Fae healer, beautiful Fae healer, bronze skin, amber eyes, comes to check on her by reading her blood. Taylena, the Fae healer, places her hands on Saeris' abdomen, and she did a thing called reading her blood. She's like, what she can do is determine if she's healed or not with her own magic. So again, pointing to the fact that you were talking about earlier, Michelle, is that different Fae have different gifts of what they're able to do. So Taylena's is that she's a healer and she can literally read the blood of the person to determine if they're healed yet. So she does something, and a shivery, not unpleasant sensation, she can feel it through her veins. Saeris can feel it. And then she smiles apologetically and is like, not yet, and gives Saeris a new book to read. She's bringing her new reading material. So at least she has something to do. She's not just sitting there looking at the wall. And on the 4th day, she says, one more day. This is 5 days, right? And on the final day, Carrion brings her breakfast. So here comes Carrion back in the scene. He has a mischievous glimmer in his eyes, shocker. And he's like, why do you look so pissed off? What's going on?
You've been resting.
Like,
it's
where the
fine.
fuck is he? Yeah. He throws himself on the bed next to her, and he wakes Onyx from his nap, of course. So Carrion believed that revenge sex in Fisher's bed would piss Kingfisher off. And this leads to Carrion flirting with Saeris. And Saeris says, no, I'm not going to do that. But it's very typical of Carrion to say, oh, yeah, you're pissed at him? Like, we could just hook up in his bed.
Yeah, make him
like,
back.
what would he do about it?
Exactly.
And Carrion ends up getting boots from Fisher since he was missing one. And he's actually out been training with the guards. So we get an idea that he's been out training. This is where he's been at. And the new boots were only given to him as a condition that Carrion took a bath. And Fisher says he didn't like the way that he smelled. And so Saeris already takes this information as what it was at the time that this is said by Carrion. And she's, oh my God. She hears this and she just it already hits her.
The
what
smell
this
is
could mean.
Right.
Yeah, but she doesn't want to.
Carrion's
she doesn't want to.
He thinks I smell bad. Like, he thinks I smell disgusting. But she's like, no, you smell like we had sex. and it makes him mad. So he wants that off of you. And yeah, immediately it doesn't. I liked how it didn't take her a lot of time to process this. It was like immediate.
No.
Like she put the pieces together, so there wasn't like a I wonder why epiphany. No, it was immediate. Like, oh fuck. And the bathing process, there's this soap and there's this moss and this loofah, and they are very particular, especially around my special parts. And they paid very thorough attention. There are 3 water sprites giving him this very extensive bath. And Saeris is like, of course you would have a foursome with some water sprites when you just get here. He's like, what can I say?
Yeah.
Clear, they weren't complaining.
No shame.
They offered.
Right.
I didn't do anything.
They came to me in the bath. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just mind my own business. I just wanted a boot.
He finally tells her, like, oh, yeah, by the way, you can leave when you're done with your breakfast. And she's like, fuck, you just been chatting me up this whole time. You told me I could leave. So she devours her breakfast really quickly, obviously, and she goes back to the forge. She's back in the forge. She's keep trying these experiments because now she's, oh, my God, I just need this to work. Has 24 failures at creating a relic. Girl can't do this to save her life. Every time she starts to refine it, she loses some of it, and her chances on getting home start to slip away in her mind. So she's starting to give up on herself. Renfis appears climbing over a wall. Saeris is that she's commenting like he looks terrifying and I should be afraid of him, but no, I'm not. And Renfis is covered in the rotting blood of the feeders, which is that black nasty stuff that we talked about before. That there's not a bathhouse at the camp and that the river has frozen over. So he just wants to let Saeris know that Fisher is requesting her company for dinner, and Renfis wasn't inviting to the dinner, but Saeris says, no, you need to go.
You're telling me in this magical camp where the tents can have magic, that there's not a single tent that has water in it in this area that is a war zone that people are at for
Seems
years.
very unlikely.
I was like, I call lie. Like, there is no way that there is not.
But also we know that it is a
bathhouse
lie.
tent.
They go there, and there totally is. So I think he just does this to emphasize the drama. Renfis is just, look at me in my, look at what the situation is to get her
dire,
more jazzed
and
up.
you need to have dinner with him. Or we're going to die.
Saeris emphasizes, she's like, well, I'm not going to go if you're not going. So, Ren, you need to go ahead and go. So ultimately, Renfis is like, fine, I'll go. Renfis also mentions that Fisher is with Taylana, the healer, and Saeris feels some kind of way about this. And she's like, why am I jealous? What is going on here? She's not proud of herself in this moment of feeling jealous of Taylana, but she definitely feels something. And she's like, why do I feel this sort of way about this? Ren leaves. She asks him how Nimmerel still has magic, which we figure this out in the Gates Part 1 and 2. We find this out in the prequel preview chapters. Saeris doesn't know this. And so Ren says none of them know. So this is the indicator that Kingfisher hasn't actually told Renfis that his sister is the reason, his twin sister is the reason that this power exists. But they know that Nimmerel is the only godsword who didn't go silent and abandon the Fae.
I wonder when that reveal is going to happen. Because Fisher will likely tell Ren at some point. So I'm curious to see when in the series that will take place, if it's going to be in a big battle, or is Ren actually going to question Kingfisher on it? What's going on? Because that's a big secret to keep, and I don't think he will intentionally keep it for the entirety of the series.
Yeah, maybe he'll tell him. Maybe in Brimstone we'll see it's revealed. But Renfis says to Saeris, Nimmerel has stayed. The spirit of that sword or the magic inside it, whatever you choose to believe, has stayed. No matter what, it's never left him, referring to Kingfisher. They're back in their room, Carrion and Saeris. He's grumbling about attending this dinner. He makes a jab at Saeris for being dirty as well. And she's not in the dress that's laid out for her. And he had a vested interest as well in seeing her in this very low-cut dress because Carrion's always got something to say. Carrion makes a comment about seeing Saeris naked at this dinner. Fisher growls at him for saying this comment. Of course he does. And the way I imagine... Have you seen The Witcher?
I haven't.
Okay, dang it. For those that have seen The Witcher, you will know the type of growls that I'm talking about. And that's how I imagine Fisher talking to...
I've seen reels with the growls. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen the series, but I've seen, yes.
Henry Cavill,
yes.
the Henry Cavill growl. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining this is what's happening here. Fisher questions why Saeris invited Carrion and Renfis to dinner because why are they here? I'm just supposed to be having dinner with you. She counters that I didn't want them to miss out on the fun. And you have to think from her perspective, I'm also thinking last time she went to dinner with you, bro, 3 vampire sucker things came out of the windows. It might be a good idea to go ahead and have some backup support here. But she sits at Kingfisher's right side, which results in Ren spitting out his wine. Another nod to her sitting in this place that is clearly some kind of coveted additional meeting here. It goes against proper etiquette, and there's no further explanation as to why this is. Carrion discusses the way that the guards fight in fluid and preemptive ways that they fight like a ballet. Carrion and Fisher argue about their style of fighting and the bloodthirsty nature of Fae versus humans and why they're drawn to, humans versus Fae and these types of things. Carrion mentions the struggle for thirst in Zilvarin, talking about water. So there's this back and forth. There's this different dialogue that's happening. This invites Carrion to train, and Sarah says, yeah, hey, I would love to. And he's like, okay. I'm not really getting anywhere with these relics, and it seems like you don't mind if I just stay here forever, so why not? I should go ahead and start training too.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, of course I don't want you to leave. You're the only alchemist that we have. And he's like, it's really shocking how little faith you have in yourself. You're going to figure it out. Please eat something. She counters that she's not hungry. Fisher was gone, actually, for 2 weeks instead of 1. Saeris comments that she didn't appreciate being stuck in his bed for 5 days. And Fisher's, oh, most females like it there. I'm surprised you're complaining.
I haven't heard complaints before. This is the first for me.
Right.
And as Saeris and Fisher are having like this back and forth now, Carrion and Ren are having a conversation too. So now we have like layering conversations. It gets confusing. Not really confusing, but you have to track multiple conversations at this point. So Carrion and Ren are like, let's talk about training in a camp, and Fisher and Saeris are like arguing about like sex in his bed and just more flirtatious things and her going back to Zilvarin. So there's a lot of overlay. And she remarks that she is very experienced with a sword and that it's similar to a dagger. Fisher's like, okay, Ren, you need to join this argument because I think you have something to say about that. And Ren's, I'm not getting into the middle of whatever that is because no, but I would be happy to show you the difference in sword play and fighting with a dagger in the morning. And this leads Carrion and Ren having a more in-depth conversation of playing with swords because, of course, why not? And Fisher again repeats to Saeris to eat little Osha. And she tells him to stop doing that, like the whisper and the pet name and all of that. But he remarks how he sees the way her skin reacts when he does that. Like she gets a physical reaction. Obviously, she's getting turned on by like the deep voice and all that. And she's
the personal attention.
And she's mad he compelled her with the oath. And she asks if he's just evil because she's still trying to make the image of him in her head as evil, which is he's not.
You also realize too at this point that the dress that got laid out for her that she remarks about, Kingfisher put that there. And it wasn't one of his mother's. We know that the background story is, the whole story with Carrion and everything. So the point of view chapter we get right before this of him, of the moment before dinner where she's not wearing the dress, of course, and all these different things. And like that he picked it out for her. And he is so conflicted at this time. And she's like confused. She's like, I can't figure out what it is you're trying to do here. And so if you eat something, I'll answer your question if I'm evil or not, right? And she eats and he's, no, I'm not evil. If he was, he could have used the oath to his own advantage. And every time he remarks about how he's compelled her 3 times, but each time was for her own benefit, not his. He tells her he would do other things if he were evil for his own benefit. Obviously, we know what he's implying here. So Ren chokes because he's hearing these whispers. Saeris is horrified because she now knows that Renfis can smell her, and she's clearly turned on too. So this whole thing is, but also Carrion can too, but she doesn't know.
She doesn't know that.
So the whole table, she doesn't need to know it. There's no added layer of more information that she needs here. So Fisher ends a conversation by telling her that they're going to camp in the morning and Saeris is going to come with them. Brings us to chapter 20. I'm going to try to say this word. Amontreath is the word.
Great job.
Spell that out because I can't. It's a tough one.
They enter the war camp through a shadow gate. The war camp was on the foothill of the Amnamarin Mountains between Kalish and Sansaroth. I tried.
You did great.
There were 20,000 tents. And this is where I picture the Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, where they're at the Quidditch match. So it's just a sea of tents. Each tent is magical. It's bigger on the inside, just like we saw in Harry Potter. Hurried through the camp. There are permanent structures too, 2-story buildings made out of wood scattered. So this isn't a temporary place. Like, this has been going on for centuries. It's been going long enough to make permanent. We're going to stay here for forever. The land on the other side was a blackened, charred wasteland. So the other side of the Darn, essentially, we have this camp. There's the Darn, the large river, which we're going to get a little backstory on, like how big it is, like its origins and everything during their training session. And then on the other side of that, it's just wasteland. There's no snow, and pillars of smoke rose up to meet the grim sky. No trees, no greenery, just black dirt and smoke. I pictured like Hercules, the underworld, like the cartoon Hercules, and like they're actually in the underworld. Yeah, that's exactly what I pictured during this.
Okay.
And there's a term, Amontreath, which is hell's teeth. And that's what's there. Its walls are sheer, made of obsidian, slick as glass, Kingfisher said. Built from the bones of demons, the peaks and spires are as sharp as a razor's edge. And that's essentially a large settlement on the other side of the Darn in Sansaroth. So a tall creature, Holgoth. He looked like Groot. I pictured Groot.
Yes,
here.
I am
He's
Groot.
twisting vines. I am Groot. He is Holgoth. And so he emerges from a tavern because, of course, there's a tavern. Why wouldn't there be? And he greeted them and said their lodgings and breakfast are waiting for them. There are arrangements about Fisher's return, and there are arguments about his return, which he responds, Ren's going to handle it and speak to him because I am no longer your prince. Head down. And this obviously gets
I haven't been leading you.
No, Ren has been leading you, but also it's like you are the actual leader. You need to talk to them. But so it causes tension between him and Ren, and they're his warriors, not Fishers. Neither Ren or Holgoth obviously are happy about this, but Fisher then led Carrie and Saeris to the armory because essentially their whole point here is to train. And this training session is really funny. As Ren is training Carrion first, Saeris is watching. He's just giving a history lesson of the Darn, like no sweating whatsoever. And Carrion's getting like the shit kicked out of him because obviously he's not a trained warrior. So I just love this next scene and reading it. The Darn begins in the east as a spring in the shallow mountain. And I love the description because it goes along with the map. So I love me a map.
Right. We know you do.
Yep. And this is where the Galarian Fae in the Autumn Court preside. So there was a mention of the Autumn Court
Second time this is mentioned or two. I think this is a very good indicator that this Quicksilver pool and this mention of the Galarian Fae and Autumn Court are mentioned. I really do think we're going to see them in Brimstone. For sure.
I agree. There wouldn't be so many because there hasn't been a spring court mentioned yet or a summer court. We see autumn and winter. So Ren's describing the river to Saeris. It starts as a small pool and travels down the mountain and gets larger. There are plains a couple 100 miles away where the Darn is over a league wide. So that's their unit of measurement. It's large, very large.
Yes.
And as he's doing this, like Ren's sword play, he like lunges at Carrion and Carrion blocked his sword, but Ren ends up putting him on his ass, which Saeris is just chuckling at, and Carrion's getting all pissed off. He's like, how am I supposed to
because
compete
Carrion
with you?
could wipe the floor with everyone before. Nobody would fuck with Carrion. Carrion's getting thrown on his ass repeatedly.
And Ren's like, you can use your size for your benefit. It's okay that you're smaller. And he's just like, you have face speed. And then this is where Saeris makes a comment like, you know what? Carrion actually is really quick. Like really quick. Almost too quick. So she's like, I don't think she's making a connection, but she's like commenting, actually, he's like too quick for a human. That's weird. But he's still not fast enough to really outsmart or outmatch Ren. Ren's just wiping the floor.
No. Ren then offers Carrion's blade to Saeris, and she grabs the blade. So she starts to fight. She knows that she's going to get her ass handed to her. That's not really the point. She asked to be trained, and this is an opportunity for her to train. So they fought, and Ren is still giving this lesson. Of course, Saeris gets knocked on her ass as well. Carrion's living for this. And she tries to start adapting her fighting style and challenges Ren to fight her. Please fight me. I'm trying to get better. And all of a sudden, Saeris actually does make Ren retreat one step. Kingfisher comes up behind her and whispers in her ear, "You hurl yourself at the end of that sword like you want to die." Knocks her off her balance, and she's on her ass again. So Fisher mocks Saeris for being disarmed, and then Ren's like, "Why are you being such an asshole? What are you doing?" And Saeris taunts Fisher, "Go ahead, if you want to fight me, let's go." And he's, "You're not ready to fight me. I'm not I don't come in a training mode." And I'm like, "Really, Kingfisher? You don't have that feature?"
No, only extra hard difficulty.
Yeah. So Ren is trying to get Fisher to go meet with the other captains and that he's needed for the meeting. Fisher tries very hard to get out of this, which we find out backstory later is he doesn't feel like he has earned their honor or earned the right to be there, which it doesn't come off that way. But that's what he's feeling. Finally, he agrees and asks Ren to take Kyrian with him, and he'll meet up with him later because Fisher needs to talk to the alchemist. And so he has these moments where he can't decide. Kingfisher's so conflicted of what he's supposed to do. So he calls her the alchemist. He doesn't know what to do with her, like what to call her.
Calling Saeris by her name would be good, but we're going to go with either the alchemist, little Osha, human, whatever he feels like calling except her name, which she comments is like, that must be an upgrade. At least I'm the alchemist and not some little pet name now. And as she's walking around the camp, the warriors are like, a human, like in complete shock because they haven't seen one in centuries. The Fae drank them all to death. So she's an oddity here. Fisher quickly makes his way to his quarters. Saeris ultimately has to jog after him, and he's just, I don't slow down for anyone, like mumbles to himself as she's like chasing after him. His quarters was a tent, but it has to be sizable enough for his ego. And it is. It's quite a large tent. It was 10 times bigger on the inside than the outside. There's a huge king-size bed, a tall bookshelf, a rug stacked with books for his research. And she's like, "What are you researching?" He's, "Stuff that's important to me. Leave me alone. You're rude. Don't talk. Don't pry." And then there's a table that had 2 settings of food, and they dined. And he offered her a compliment for her fighting, and she's like, "What?" Taken aback.
What?
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, you're shocked?" He's like, "No. It seems like you've had training. You can tell when people have had training in the way that they move, and you've clearly move around like you've been trained before. But Ren was going easy on you. Don't take it too far to your head." So obviously backhanded comment. We can't let it go to her head at all. As they ate, Fisher comments how she's actually able to be compliant. And it's amazing how people prefer to acquiesce to a request rather than a demand. "If you're kind to me, I'll do what you ask. You don't have to be an asshole all the time." Which also, fair. I would say that's fair. And there's like this discussion about power. And she even makes a comment that he's like Bellicon and wants power. And that's why he uses the oath and like commands her to do things. He's, "No, I don't want power. Power isn't something that I seek after, and I'm nothing like Bellicon. Get that straight right now. I'm using the oath to your advantage to keep you safe." The humans aren't considered slaves here. They've never been considered slaves here. Get that thought out of your mind. They were dinner, of course, during the blood curse, but they were never slaves. The fangs clearly lingering from the curse. And she comments, okay, they may be actually intertwined with their DNA at this point because it's been so long that they've had the fangs and the blood curse was so far along. And Fisher again saying, "Listen, I just want you to listen to what I'm saying because I'm responsible for you. I need you alive to make the rings. And without them, I will never be able to reclaim this land for my father's people. And you just need to follow what I'm saying for both of our own sake. It's not because I want power over you." And then she, again, is like, "Have you considered that I just want to help?" And he gives her this look. And this is where we're actually seeing like a true intimate moment in here. And it made something stir in her heart. So it's something deep. I'm wondering here is when mates occur, there's this click, this snap, whatever is described. I wonder if this is when it starts stirring in her body, like this moment specifically, because I know she's been attracted to him in the past, but I feel like that was more because he's just attractive. And I think here is where there's something deeper in her feelings, and her body is acknowledging that, recognizing it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and she actually admits how much she desires him in this moment, which she hasn't really said before, and she's not using this moment that they kiss and that they have this intimate time to do anything else. There's no other endgame for her. It happens because he flies over to her when she admits that she's willing to help his cause. He can't help himself. As soon as she says that she wants him, he runs away, runs to the other side. But yeah, I do agree with you that this is a moment that she's actually vested in versus the other moments we've had leading up to this, which were she's interested, she's not interested. Like she was unsure. But I think this is a clear turning point in how she is very conflicted about her thoughts and feelings, but there's definitely no denying that there's feelings there. So the Quicksilver stills at this moment. I can't trust anything. And he gets up and leaves. And she's,
what the fuck?
Yeah. Okay, and the way I thought about Twilight, where in book 1, the very first book, where Edward and Bella kiss in her room, and he like flies backwards, and he's like, wait.
Yeah.
Like, that was what I imagined here.
Yeah.
So Saeris bolts from the tent, and she like splits. I'm out of here. She just runs through the war camp, and she's follows the warriors down to this clearing. She's just like, running aimlessly. Has no idea where she's going. She luckily bumps into Ren. He asks where Fisher was, and he asks if she was okay. And she's like, oh, fuck, he can smell my arousal and all this. And he didn't do anything wrong. And he's, no, I can smell both of y'all. So I know that's not what happened. Oh my God, this is so awkward again. So the tent opens up and it's this giant war room, because of course it is. It's got stone walls and tapestries. 20 warriors are gathered in there. It's this like gigantic space, which again points to why Netflix is going to be able to make such an amazing thing with this, because how cool is this to see? Ren invites her to get as close to the fire as possible to burn that smell off of her if she's worried about it. Here, go over to the fire. That'll relieve you of smelling like this.
And Carrion's just like snacking on a quiche by the fire.
Carrion's just like chilling by the fire eating a quiche. What? Saeris, the way he grins at her, Saeris, can he smell me? Like, what is the deal? And so she's starting to slowly piece together the possibility that Carrion may be other, but it still hasn't clicked for her because there's not enough information here yet. And Carrion's, something bad is about to happen here. A female warrior, white blonde hair and lilac eyes, has been animatedly discussing something with the others. She's argued and she's punched another warrior. And this is Danya, of course, but Carrion notes that Saeris's neck is bleeding. He comments that it looks like a scratch, and it's because when they were kissing, Kingfisher took it a little bit too far, and she gets a scratch from him. This is where he flies backwards. He's like, I can't control myself, the whole bit.
Yep.
Kingfisher finally enters, and Danya immediately confronts him. And now we know Danya a little bit because we have the point of view chapters, the Gates 1 and 2. We know who she is a little bit more and what she's been through with him. And we know about her sword and some of the backstory with that as well. Her God sword, which it's not like Nimmerel. It doesn't have any power anymore, but it's still her sword. And he's dripping wet. He literally jumped into the river. He's soaking wet to get the smell off of him and to also like stop himself for his like libido needed to be like doused. And Danny's like, come on, we're all here, Fisher. Let's hear the amazing fucking reason why you left us high and dry for the past century and why you've decided to slink back to us now with your tail between your legs. So Danya has no understanding of what's happened, and she's pissed at Kingfisher. And
he's been, of
course,
at camp multiple times, and she's
too.
realizing that it's not that he was just gone. He's been at camp, but concealing himself.
Yeah, he was there a week before and not
for 2 weeks,
not saying anything to anyone. Yep.
So she's pissed at that too. What? Why didn't you say anything to us then? So rightfully pissed. But she obviously, she doesn't understand the scope of what's happened because Bren's not going to tell him that. That's not his secret to tell.
Danya recalls the battle at Gilthrai and he disappeared from it. Ren comments that she has no idea what she sees. Renfist is trying to come to Kingfisher's aid because he's been there and knows more of what's going on. Lorith, whom I love Lorith, warns Danya to be careful with her words. Fisher, of course, refuses to say anything, and he can't say anything anyway because he's bound. And Danya pushes for answers. Fisher is just like, I returned as soon as I could. Danya draws her sword and calls Kingfisher a traitor and puts her sword to Fisher's throat. Sarah screams at the top of her lungs for her to stop, and Danya's sword splinters into 1,000 shards. And again,
a god sword. But it's not
a god
just
sword, not just any sword.
Yeah. a powerful sword if it had its magic, but it's not like a little dagger.
A Quicksilver sword. This is a massive sword, a god sword that Danni has carried for hundreds of years, that was passed down to her through generations, that has significant meaning in her family, that once carried the god's magic and also has Quicksilver. And Saeris has just shattered the shit out of it because she threatened Kingfisher's life. Danya's like, what the fuck? And everyone is like, what is she? And she's like, you have an alchemist. And Kingfisher's like, she's mine. This is our first don't even. She's mine instance.
Yes.
Shutting it
and
down.
We're here for
she's
it.
Yes, we are.
She's mine.
We're here for it. Yeah. He's over here like drenched in water, still trying to get himself together. And then, Danya tries to kill him. And then, of course, we have something that disrupts everything. There's a boom and a cry for icebreakers. So we know that this means that the ice needs to be broken up so that the feeders can't get across. The warriors all take action. Saeris was now at the riverbank, and the ice needs to be broken, and the chapter ends on a cliffhanger here. So that brings us to our mystery Q&A.
So these questions have not been shared with either of us prior to asking.
My question for you is, what, and it can be a book or a movie, what thing was like big popular thing that you either A, had no interest in or just never read or were not into that you know of that's like a big pop culture reference?
So I wasn't really into Percy Jackson. That was a big one because Percy Jackson was like at the tail end of Harry Potter. I was very much into Harry Potter, just not Percy Jackson just never sparked my interest. I know that's a big one.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
So book-wise, that would be yours. I guess they had movies too.
Yeah. Yeah, they had both.
Yeah. For me, and I'm trying to correct this wrong, I never read Dune, any of those books, or seen any of the series or know anything about it. So I'm trying to actively correct that, but I missed that entire boat. I had no idea what was going on with that. And it wasn't just like I wasn't interested in it. I just missed it because there's so much stuff that goes on. There's so many series and so many things. I never got into that. I didn't read Percy Jackson either. So if that's lost to everyone listening, I'm sorry. I never read or listened to or watched anything with Percy Jackson. So sorry about that. I totally missed the boat on that as well. Dune, do you know anything about Dune or that world?
My husband watched the Dune movie and he liked it. That's about, I don't really, because I know the movie came out
I like science
2020s.
fiction fantasy. I enjoy all of that stuff. I just never, I want to read it. It's like really great. I just haven't done it yet. So it's on my TBR. So I'm going to read it this year for sure. I know it's a commitment. I know you have to at least read the first 3 books and then there's a whole bunch more stuff to this. And then I just never got into it. I guess the show is really great too. But yeah. Okay, that was my question. What's yours?
I thought it was a movie.
I don't know. I think there's more. I think there's a couple different things. There's multiple movies and there's a bunch of stuff with it.
Okay. All right. So my question, it's going to be along the same thread. I was thinking, flashback to millennial times. What was your like millennial core like movie book? I know we've talked about Harry Potter, but let's try to stay away from Harry Potter.
Hunger Games.
Okay.
I watched the Hunger Games movies so many times. Like Jennifer Lawrence, I loved her in those movies and actually really well made. She was cast perfectly in that role as Katniss.
She was.
I really do think she crushed that role and she made those movies successful. I did love Divergent as a book series, but the movies could have been done better. I think that they lacked budget or something. Like the acting wasn't terrible. It was like they just didn't execute them well, I felt like.
And that was the time where dystopian was just like super popular because there was Hunger Games, Maze Runner.
There was a bunch at once.
And Divergent, like all at the same
Runner.
time.
Maze Runner
I love
was
the Maze
good
Runner
too.
books. Like I have the whole series. I love the series. I did not.
Ready Player One
didn't do it for me.
Did you like Ready Player One?
I don't think I watched that.
Ready Player One was good. You got to watch that. You got to watch that one.
Okay. My husband tries to, when we get quiet time ever,
which is when,
throw like some movie at me. Let's watch this, and then I usually fall asleep within the first 30 minutes. Not because it's boring, but because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So my brain immediately went Mean Girls. Like that was so millennial core.
Oh,
like,
that was. I love that
like,
too, though. Yeah,
yes,
Tina Fey. That was so good.
And
absolutely,
there's just so many one-liners and just so many pop culture references. So yeah, that was definitely like obviously when it came out, it was a little bit inappropriate for me to watch, but whatever.
Oh, it's huge.
The 2000s.
It was huge. Yeah, great. Awesome.
All right. Before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next in Book Club After Dark.
Yeah, next week we're going to dive into chapters 21 through 25 of Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So hit that subscribe button to hear more of our exciting book talk. We're looking forward to continuing to dissect this novel with you.
And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on Quicksilver or suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message us on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
You can also visit our website, bookclubafterdark.co, to stay up to date on our cozy merch and check out our content.
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.